Hi, I'm Josh Rotenberger with the Arthur Companies, and I'm the agronomist from Arthur, and welcome to the third week of Living Proof. Today I'm here to talk about SCN. It's a parasitic roundworm living in the soil. The main destructive characteristics of it is it's going to be feeding on the soybean roots, which in return is going to be causing issues with nutrient availability, water absorption, just overall plant health. The other aspect and thing that we don't really contribute a lot to is some of the other factors that then affect it. It leaves an open site for injury, which then can produce into other diseases like SDS and other root rots. So one of the things that we're doing for Living Proof here is demonstrating a couple different seed treatments. So right behind me here, we're working on a couple. The first one being Ilevo from BASF, the second one being Avail from Valent, and the third one being Corriva Complete from Syngenta. All three products we have done some testing over the years, and one thing we wanted to do here today or this growing season is to dive a little deeper into it and see how it actually affects our egg counts. The best way to monitor soybean cyst nematode is to scout and monitor your fields for soybean egg levels and also just overall physical symptoms. So if we talk about scouting first, you're going to want to basically do soil samples in areas of your field where cyst problems are most potential. So you can have overland flooding, you can have migratory birds bringing in many entryways into a field, even just your tillage implements, your seeding implements, anywhere where you're making some traffic in and out of the field. And how you actually do that is by conducting a soil sample right there in those areas and sending them into a lab and taking cyst counts. And the way they measure that is in eggs per 100 cc's. In-season symptomology of soybean cyst nematode is usually going to be detected 6 to 8 weeks after planting. And the first thing you'll probably look for is yellowing and stunting in the plants, which in dry years is going to be amplified even more. And if you rule out all other factors like IDC, drought damage, herbicide carryover, the next thing to do is then dig up the roots and look at the root system and look for actual cysts on the roots. And what you're seeing there, if you're finding lemon-colored shaped cysts, is actually the female body itself that is ballooned up big enough to actually see by the naked eye. Sometimes you still might need a microscope to see what you're looking at. One other method would be to evaluate your yield maps, and if you are seeing unexplained areas of lower yielding environments, that would be one clue to maybe check out from the next season, or if it's still have time in the fall. The distribution of cyst in the field is very sporadic. You can have pockets that are very concentrated with high egg level counts to 10 feet away could be virtually nothing. It's a very clump distribution, so sampling in the correct areas is very important. The next thing I'll talk about is management of SCN. We've been dealing with SCN in the Arthur area for probably over 20 years, and the last 10 years have been managing it quite extensively. One of the first ways we started managing it was looking into more resistant varieties. So over the years, our seed partners have come with different resistant varieties that have shown very good responses to overcoming the effects of SCN. One other key thing to look at is your source of resistance. Most seed companies now are using the same source across all varieties. And one thing like we know with all other insects or weeds is that resistance management is a big piece of the puzzle. So that's one reason why we're conducting these other trials here. The second way here is you'd be looking at seed treatments, which are these three products we talked about today. What they're going to do is just add another barrier protection against the actual cyst infecting and feeding on the actual root system. The third way, which is probably the most important, is crop rotation. By rotating non-host crops such as corn, wheat, barley, sunflowers, you're just avoiding another season of actually getting that egg count built up. And our egg count is our most important way of managing soybean cyst nematode. By getting a baseline number on how many eggs per 100 cc's you have in your hot spots in the field, you then have a way to gauge at what your levels are. If you're noticing unexplained areas in your field, whether it's growing season or at harvest, give us a call and we'd love to help you check that out. Thanks for your time this week, and I'm going to turn it over here to Karel, who is going to talk about the current grain market situation. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Karel. I'm the general manager here at the Arthur Companies, and I'm going to give you guys just a brief little update on grain markets. Yesterday we did have a USDA report, so I'm going to walk through each commodity briefly, and if you have any other specific questions, make sure you call and talk to a merchandiser. We'll start with the corn crop. So as we've all noticed, corn prices have been up 30 to 40% in the last 2 to 3 months, and that's all been on late planting. So we have a big crop in South America, but in the US here, we're all very aware that a lot of the corn has not got planted. So as of Monday's report on the USDA, they've dropped their supply demand from 92 million acres to 89.8 million acres, and they dropped our yields 10 bushels an acre down to 166 bushels an acre. Now, we believe that's a good middle of the ground situation, but we at the Arthur Companies are looking for a cut in acres from that 89.6, probably down to that 86 million acres, 85 million acres, 84 million acres, it may be potentially, depending on what got planted the first 2 weeks of June. Now, just a reminder, that report was as of the end of May, and it's all survey based. So we'll see as we get through, but we expect, the USDA gave a nice happy medium between what the trade expects and where they were at on planting intention. So as we meet those, you're going to see volatile markets. The one thing we would remind is to have target orders in. So as of this morning, December corn is trading about $4.50 on the futures board in Chicago. We believe 465, 475 is within reach, but we're going to have to see some tumultuation between now and then. It's going to be August, September, October before we really see any definition to what those acres and what those stocks are going to do. Do we reduce yields from 166 down to 150, 155, 158? Every time we have some pollination issues, we're going to have stand count issues, crusting issues, all of these things we're going to be talking about all summer. And just a reminder, the media is going to be playing up every little story like it's a big deal because they're selling content. So just make sure you're having orders in and you have a plan of attack for how you're going to address your revenue situation. From a soybean standpoint, USDA did not change any numbers. We still have similar yields, similar acres. We do expect less than 84 million acres to be planted based on the current weather maps and the current drawdowns. However, we're going to have to wait till July to know that because guys will plant beans late depending on what USDA is going to do with preventive plant situations and how these Trump bucks, the MFP 2.0 money is going to be doled out, and none of us know. So there's a lot of speculation. That being said, you start reducing stocks to use on soybeans, we're not going to be in a great situation, but we're going to be better. You add the Trump bucks on, all of a sudden, there's some revenue protection to take place. So in that situation, make sure you're monitoring your revenue situation, make sure you're pricing profitable bushels as you're incurring expenses, and start to look at 20. You look at 2020 crop corn and soybeans as we get those opportunities. Don't be afraid to sell some corn. The fear of missing out is a terrible thing, but if you're selling profitable bushels, you can always have those back. So the one thing we always say is just as you're pricing inputs, machinery, fertilizer, land rent, property taxes, make sure you're constantly selling into that at small intervals rather than trying to hit the top or buy it back. On wheat, the main thing we're looking at on wheat right now is the dryness in Canada, mostly in Saskatchewan. You get south of Saskatoon, there's a lot of areas from there to the border. There's a lot of wheat and barley growing, and they are really hurting on moisture. So from Alberta into central Manitoba, they are dry. There's a lot of small grains growing there. I would say in our trade area, most of the wheat in North Dakota outside of Anamoose, Harvey is in a good situation. There's a part of the central part of the state by Minot that could use some rain, but for the most part, all the wheat acres are in. They look 85% good to excellent. We need a couple rains here and we'll be set for a mid-August harvest. So if you have any specific questions, make sure you talk to a merchandiser and feel free to reach out, and really appreciate your guys' time. Thank you.